Jake Paul and Nate Diaz. Of course, Jake Paul coming off of a loss of his first real boxer in Tommy Fury. Tommy Fury's not at the top of the heavyweight division by any means. But it's an interesting fight here. Look, Jake Paul was able to barely beat Anderson Silva, who has showed that he can win some boxing matches prior to that. Is Nate Diaz a good a boxer as Silva? I mean, the Spider's got hands. So part of my brain goes to there. Well, maybe not, because Silva's a great fighter. I don't know that Diaz has got the same boxing skills. But then I switch over and I say, well, but Diaz maybe has a little more power and a little more crazy. he may be willing to get hit to go in there and hit Jake, whereas Silva, you could tell all along, was trying to definitely keep his distance and not really trade blows. And it was a good route for there. But having said that, with Diaz maybe wanting to go for it, I think Jake Paul is just good enough against MMA guys that I still see probably Jake Paul knocking out Nate Diaz. That's what my gut tells me right now. But in these little sideshow ones are a little hard to call. It's not like I can go watch a bunch of Nate Diaz boxing film, right? And see how much I like his actual boxing.
Here's the situation. I'm going to respectfully disagree with you on a couple of points.
Okay.
I think Anderson Silva is a retired guy. Anderson Silva, when he was at the top of his game in MMA, was so good that he was accused of actually doing that, taking some fights like not 100% seriously because he was, not really challenged. Now, I think that if you walk into a fight, you change it completely. If one guy's there half-assed and the other guy's there 100% focused on trying to do what he has to do to win. And I think that's what you got with Anderson Silva. I think if you asked him before the fight if he's going to win, he ask most fighters in the UFC if they're going to win. Of course they're going to win, because that's the pre-fight mindset. But I think Anderson wasn't in that. I don't think that was a real fight. Like, in that respect, Anderson didn't take it seriously the way he should have. I think that might change with Diaz, because I think Diaz is a guy that more of his cash is that cred where, you don't mess with, like, the fight is a sacred realm of its own, and you don't mess with the sanctity of that. I think that Diaz is one of the good guys that believes that. Like, fighting since he was 16, and the way he does that, get himself psyched up for fights and things. I don't see him being in there like, yeah, let's see how this one goes, like before the fight, smiling before getting in the ring and stuff. No, so I think there you've got more of a chance. We're going to know what if Diaz is serious, then I think we're talking about different levels. And you're right, we don't have a lot of tape on Nate boxing, but I can tell you things I've heard. And since they were very young, him and his brother have always kind of seeked out, they're known for jiu-jitsu and stuff like that, but at some point you can tell in their game they picked up hands somewhere.
Right.
And they both knew that, and they both understand volume punching and things like that. So now where does that pedigree come from? My understanding is that they spent a good bit of time as sparring partners. We were talking about pound for pound guys, Crawford, Inoue, before that Chocolatito. This is another guy that was on that list. This is Andre Ward.
Oh, shit. Yeah.
They both sparred with Andre Ward, and I've seen Andre in a boxing setting where he doesn't really, where there's no need to give the Diaz the respect of, like, they're great fighters, or whatever. There's no need for him to do that. And he made it a point to state that those guys were serious and that he got great rounds from them. So whatever it is he was trying to do.
Well, if that's the case, I mean, if we trust Andre Ward,
yeah, they put in the work with him. They're doing the work, and they realize they've got a gold medalist and a world champion in front of them. They're drinking that up. And if they spent a couple years doing that, I'd argue that he's more prepared in boxing than Jake Paul has with whatever crash course he's been doing over the last couple of years as well.
Well, you look, Nate Diaz is a plus 240. Jake Paul's a minus 340. So when you look at these and see Stephen Fulton as we go back at plus 210, I'm not very tempted to take that. But after listening to and as I said, I think Nate Diaz will go for it. I mean, you kind of said you were going to disagree with me. I was a little disappointed in the fact that you didn't really disagree with me that much. I mean, because I do think Diaz is capable and is going to go for it. I'm just afraid that might open him up for a shot because Jake Paul doesn't have a lot, but he's got a hell of a right hand. I think
that's really unsophisticated for a Diaz who's going to just be getting. Anderson Silva wasn't playing defense. Okay. He got caught with his feet messed up, and he got dropped.
Crossed. Yeah.
I really don't think that was a UFC world title fight that he wouldn't have gotten up and continued and stayed on the fight. But you had him at 45 years old.
Yep.
He cared.
Right. Right. So I like what you're saying though. There's something to be said. Again, this fight's not till August 5th. At the time of this recording, we're a few months away still. But at plus 240 right now. Now, as it gets closer and people wake up to this fight, you might expect Jake's media followers to put money on him. And so if that Nate Diaz number moves up and we can get a 275 or a plus 300, then I do think there's definitely a bet to be made there. Because I think Nate will be more aggressive and more capable than Silva, although Silva may be, he'd had a couple more professional boxing matches. He didn't look bad, truthfully. Who did he beat? He beat Chavez Jr., right? He beat say again.
And Diaz concentrated on his boxing. He didn't really kick all that much. He was more of a boxer in MMA.
Yeah.
So his game is more suited to this. This is actually easy for Diaz because not having to train on the ground, not having to do any of that stuff, it's going to make this training actually easier and perhaps even more fun.
You're right. It could be a sleeper. What a great. This is one to watch. This is one to watch.
How does Diaz motivate himself?
Yeah.
He's a guy that's got to find an angle that kind of gets him like he's Superman, like he's righting a wrong. Like there's something wrong, and I'm going to beat the hell out of it until it's right. Whether this guy doesn't belong in the top whatever, or they're bad-mouthing me, or they think I can't fight, I'm going to correct the impression here. And I think here he has a chance to really define what a real fighter is versus a joke fighter. By giving it a serious performance and putting an exclamation point on this, if he can do it.
I would love to see it. I really would.
If he can't do it, then it speaks to, maybe Jake Paul has moved further along. But that's going to be like, I'm counting on Nate to at least be trying to do that. To trying to give me an exclamation point win. So this whole circus of crap. I'm glad he got his payday. If anybody deserves it, it's those guys. So he got his payday. Now this circus of crap can go away. And I think that's at the end of the day what Nate, the paradox of Nate is he hates this shit. But he's going to go and grab his money. But if he can give me that message of showing a real fighter versus a joke, and it can be illustrated, it could be the end of all this. That would be a motivator. I would love for Nate to be able to pull that off. Drop this guy, leave him dead, take 1 million of his followers, and let him go make joke videos for the rest of his life because he's not a fighter.
Right. And hey, looking back at his record, he's lost by submission and decision, numerous once. Only Jorge ever knocked him out with a hand. He was knocked out once by Josh Thompson with a kick. But only a hand has only ever knocked him out once. That was Jorge Masvidal in his entire UFC career. So the chances that Nate has a chin against a full boxing glove instead of an MMA glove, I mean, Miguel, you're starting to win me over here. Like, I don't know that Jake will knock him out.
It's because it's not sophisticated. He's not going to set up a punch. He's not going to, oh, he did it with a left hook and then he did it with a right-handed body punch. You know, there's no sophistication. You know the big punch that's coming there. So I think.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. This is a fabulous. I love this show because I was looking at it from a boxing standpoint purely. You're bringing that MMA stuff, but then mixing Andre Ward in, and then you got me looking over here at Nate's record. You know, it really does. I mean, the signs really are pointing to Nate not getting knocked out. Again, only once has he been knocked out by a fist in his entire career. So, and I don't recall that fight. Was it a ground and pound? Was it,
I don't remember the exact finish. I remember thinking that Masvidal was looking to be the fresher body throughout the fight.
Yeah.
That could be a little bit of a factor here. Nate's a little worn out, but I think he's got some time off. You know,
and he doesn't have to wrestle, as you said. He doesn't have to get himself tired on the ground.
Another thing that's interesting here to check out is on the way there, the weigh-ins and things. Where does Nate come in? Because he's a 170-pounder max in UFC. So what's he going to walk around and come in at? And also, you know, we're just talking truths here. I want to see him without his shirt on. Because at 38, if all of a sudden he's ripped up and looking like, you know, if steroids were to play a part, people blame Jake Paul, but they could really help Nate clean up for one big performance here as well. And if there's not a lot of testing, not a lot of that stuff going on, that might be a tell sign, you know? Nate's the pro. I don't think he needs it, but all those things come to mind, you know?
Recuperative is very helpful is what it's used for a lot of times, of course. Paul, last fight came in at 183.6 against Fury, and as you said, 170 for Nate Diaz was the weight class for the UFC.
It's at 180 though. That's not bad. If he's 170 in a UFC fight, he probably walks around 180. He
doesn't have to cut weight, more than likely, for this fight. That's another benefit for Diaz. Hey, look, the smaller guy, he's smaller. Well, maybe he's smaller because he cuts to 170 to fight in that weight class in the UFC. He's 175, 180, pretty easy. You know, so if he doesn't have to cut weight like he does for UFC, maybe you don't see that more lethargic Nate Diaz that you saw against a Jorge Masvidal. Maybe that had to do with the weight cut, getting older, and the weight cut combined, of course. No weight cut now.
It has to do with mindset. You know, he gets pressure where, you know, it's about money, the fighting, and to him, I think he's made his money, and he deserves to have made his money. He's got on the business end people, I think, that take care of him and stuff, so they're making sure that, you know, his taxes are paid and he's not going to turn out poor, and that's what makes him such a great example. Because, you know, you got to at some point start to take it seriously at that way, or else you really are going to be ripped off by the promoters and everybody else. So his keen eye for that stuff. There are times where the promotions have not done a good job motivating, and he goes into a fight kind of like, I'm here because of the contract and stuff like that. I don't think you get your best performance here. At this point, he's out of his UFC contract. He signed to do this because I think he's got a mission. If that mission is, let's erase this blight from the fight game. This isn't a fight game. Put this over where, you know, I've seen fighting in claymation. Put this over there because that's what it's closer to than Jake Paul is to a real fighter. You know,
I'm here for it. I really hope it doesn't. At this point now, I'm my money's gonna end up on Nate. I can tell. Whether I make it an official dog pick or just a dog watch, but I've elevated him to dog watch already here and now through this conversation.
Considering it, everybody, you know, the fight's 2 months from now, but still, this is a fight that's going to get a lot of attention. So I would stay on top of that number and start to see if it fluctuates one way or another. And see, you know, you don't want to pounce on something, because if it starts to move the other way and you can't get that number, then, however, we're real early on this one. I think both sets of people come with diehard fans that'll vote for him. So I don't think the odds you get there are necessarily the best odds for who's going to win. I think that it's their crowds weighing in.
Sure. Absolutely. That's going to factor in as well. So great show, Miguel. Man, I appreciate it. These are fun. Nice.